Hi, it's Dr. Mary, and today we are talking about 5 ways you can show up for yourself. August was a very challenging month for a lot of women in my tribe, and the questions around self-care and taking care of you and how do I show up for myself in the midst of my incredibly busy day, week, month, year life. How do I actually make time for me? Kept coming up. So I'm stopping by today with 5 ways that you can start to show up for yourself. For me, they occurred over time, but pick what resonates for you. And I also have an invitation for you, so stay tuned. So before we actually dive into 5 ways that you can show up for yourself, I want to share a story with you. The story is from when I was 25, so this has been almost 2 decades ago. I was just finishing, I had gotten my PhD, I was just finishing my very first year in academia, and I got sick. At first it was the stomach flu, virus going around, flu virus going around, and the flu shot had not apparently had that particular strain in it that year. So I got laid out pretty sick for a few days. But then I wasn't getting better. And in fact, I was getting worse. So my then husband took me to the doctor. And the doctor checked my vitals, listened to my lungs, listened to my heart, and did all the doctory kinds of things that typically happen on a visit to the doctor. Asked me some questions, looked me in the eye and said, you have 2 options. I can call an ambulance and they can take you to the ER. Or you can get in the car and your husband can drive you straight to the ER. You're going to the ICU. I was very out of it because I was so sick. But what had happened is that I had not been showing up for myself. And I let myself get so run down that I was vulnerable. My immune system was shot, and I was vulnerable to anything and everything that was coming my way. So at first it was the stomach flu, but guess what? Because my immune system was hit by the stomach flu, when the viral pneumonia came along, I got that right on the heels of the stomach flu. 7 days later, I was released from the ICU with an oxygen tank and a treatment that I had to use every day for a month. My next visit, my first follow-up post being in the ICU for 7 days, my doctor said to me, if your husband had not have brought you in, you probably would have been dead within 4 hours. He later dubbed me his poster child for taking care of you and getting the pneumonia vaccine as well as a flu shot. Because if a healthy 25-year-old, which I was, can almost die from pneumonia, yeah, that's what would have gone on the death certificate had I not made it. Not to be morbid, but just to be honest. But really what happened was I wasn't taking care of me. I was working 70 to 80 hours a week. I was eating healthy, I was exercising, I was doing all the right things, but of course, with that level of work, my stress level was through the roof, and stress takes out your immune system. So with no immune system left, thanks to all of my stress and my overworking and my overdoing and my overgiving, I literally got taken out and I almost died. Now, I would love to tell you that at 25, I suddenly woke up and from then on, everything has been wonderful and I've always taken exquisite care of myself, but that would be a lie, right? I'm nothing if not human. And so my pattern for about 15 years got to be one of, I would get really sick, I would take really good care of myself after being sick for a couple of months, and then it would just kind of start to go off the wayside. I would just stop. I would start putting other people's needs in front of my own. I would get sick again eventually, right? I would go back to self-care. I would renew my self-care practice. And then over time, it would kind of go by the wayside. repeat ad nauseum for about 15 years. And then I suddenly had this aha moment. I was listening to a telesummit, and one of my fellow colleagues in the online coaching industry, Lisa Marie Rosati, was talking about an aha moment she had. And she said, I was taking my 3 kids across country from New York to California on an airplane, and I was listening to the flight attendant talk about the safety information. And invariably, there's the part of the safety spiel that goes something like, in the event of an cabin pressure change, oxygen mask will drop down from the ceiling. Please be sure just to secure your own mask before helping those around you. And as a mother of 3 at that point, young children, she had a thought to herself, I wouldn't do that. I would put the mask on my 3 kids. And then, if I was still alive, right, I would put the mask on myself. And at that moment, it was like, ding, ding, ding. You can't be there for your kids if you don't put your oxygen mask on. Ladies, self-care is your oxygen mask. And that's the analogy. You cannot be there for your family, for your friends, for your loved ones, for your job, for insert all of your roles and responsibilities and obligations if you don't take care of you first, if you don't show up for you. So it's been really a almost 20-year lesson in the making. I'm still not perfect at it. I still have days that I work for 12 hours and go, oh, why did I just do that to myself? I still have busy times. Get it. We're all busy. Probably more so than we should be. So here's what I invite you to do. Start to show up for yourself. So where do you start? So for me, back in the day when I was working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, I started showing up for myself by asking myself a question first thing every morning before I got out of bed. This is a practice that nearly 20 years later I still continue to do. Every day I check in with myself. The question varies, but it's something along the lines of, what do I need to do for me today? Not for my kids, not for my boss, not for my spouse, not for my to-do list. Me. What do I need to do for me today? What would nourish my soul today? What would be the most loving thing I could do for me today? How can I show up for myself today? So there's a variety of ways you can phrase that question. But the point is, ask the question, what can I do for me today? And do it. No matter what, do it. Am I perfect? Do I have days that I sometimes miss what I've sworn to myself that I will do? Yeah, but it's pretty rare these days. Because I've learned the hard way that if I don't show up for myself, I can't show up for all of the people that I'm here to be of service to, that I'm here to help. So, if you're starting from 0 self-care, 0 time, that's where I would start. Ask yourself every morning, or put a reminder on your phone, whatever it may be, whatever time works for you, what do I need to do for me today? Or some variant on that question. And do it. Number 2. That first question, that question rocked my world. It changed my life. However, I soon began to realize that it wasn't enough. I still needed more. Because even if I started my day with 30-second practice of showing up for me, it didn't last that long. So the second thing I added was what I now call my paused practice. Basically, it's a presence practice. It's a taking breaks. It's stopping once an hour to get up and stretch when you've been sitting at your workstation for hours. It's going outside and smelling the flowers, or watching the snowfall or the leaves turn, or whatever season it may be when you're watching this. It is just throughout your day, a few times a day. And again, you put a reminder on your phone if you need to. Pause. Breathe. Get present with who you are, with what you're doing. Go outside. You know, nature has been one of my most potent healers for my entire life. And so I often, it's a rare day that goes by that I'm not out in nature, at least a little bit, even on the worst of days. Pause. So this is something that I institute all of the time. So I still work in academia in addition to having a coaching practice. So in between meetings, in between walking across campus from one meeting to the next, or from class to my office, or back and forth, I stop. I look at the flowers. I take in the leaves changing. I watch the snowfall. Whatever it is, it doesn't take long, but it's learning to be more present. Being present, pausing, enjoying things. Enjoying the beauty of nature, enjoying what life has to offer. That's part of showing up for yourself. Number 3. Number 3 and number 4 actually started at the same time. And so I'm going to give them to two separate entities because they can be done separately. But for me, they're now part of my daily practice. The first is meditation. And this can be any kind of meditation you want. There's a bazillion CDs out there, YouTube videos on how to meditate, on different kinds of meditation. I actually started with yoga, which is more of a moving meditation, because I couldn't ever still my mind for more than a millisecond, and I was frustrated when I first started trying to meditate. I was just get so frustrated because I couldn't stop. There actually are kinds of meditation that are designed for that, and you just watch your thoughts like clouds going by. But I started with yoga. It was more of a moving meditation, or I would go take a nature walk and be very slow and methodical and purposeful about it. But there's guided meditations out there. I have some on my channel, so you can just scroll down and find on my channel and find some guided meditations. I mean, there's a lot of CDs out there, a lot of YouTube videos out there. There's a lot of meditations, MP3s you can download. So that was one of the big things. And I'm not asking you to do this for 2 hours. I started with 30 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes. Now I do a couple of 10 to 15 minute sessions a day on most days. Again, I'm not perfect. So sometimes I miss my meditations. But that's the goal. It helps me calm my mind. Again, kind of extension of that pause practice, that presence practice. It helps me get more present in this moment. So that's number 3. Number 4 is journaling. And again, this is something I do every single day, and I rarely miss my journaling. Because my journaling time is my time to get my thoughts, everything that's floating around in my head, out on paper. So several years ago, I read a book by Julia Cameron called The Artist Way, and she talked about doing something called morning pages. So in her method, it's you write for at least 3 pages. And I don't always get 3 pages, but I usually fill at least 1 to 1.5. And that's good. That's all I need. I have some reflection questions I use, and I just journal. I do it in the morning, I do it in the evening. Sometimes I take my journal with me if I'm processing a lot of stuff and I know it's probably something is going to come out. I'm going to want to write it down so I don't forget it. But journaling, writing for healing, has been an incredibly potent practice for me in a way that I show up for myself. Because sometimes writing and diving deep, pen on paper, is one of the best ways to get clarity on what you're struggling with. So 3 and 4, again, for me, they came about the same time. I often do them together because I meditate, then I journal in my meditation, or I'll journal and then I'll meditate based on what I journaled about. So oftentimes they go together. They don't have to. Again, whatever works for you. Last but not least, and this was a process, I developed a morning and evening, I call them my power hours. They don't always take an hour, but dedicated time for me each morning, right when I get out of bed, and each evening, right before I go to bed, to calm, to center, to ground. What do I do in my time? My mornings typically look like this. I roll out of bed, I take my dog for a walk, and while I'm on that walk, I'm out enjoying nature. I'm processing in my head, what do I want to do for me today? So I'm kind of combining some of these things together. I think about how I want to feel today. I think about how I can show up for myself today. So that I come home feed her because she's usually starving and begging for food at that point. And then I continue my morning power hour. I do some yoga, I do some meditation, I do some journaling. That's my typical morning routine. Do I do it every morning? No. Again, I'm not perfect, but that's the goal. Evening. What I found, I'm someone who has a history of anxiety, and it's something that I still struggle with, especially when I'm not taking care of myself. So what I found is that sometimes getting stuff down on paper can be a way of me going, okay, let's get it out of my brain so it doesn't wake me up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and down on paper, and let's just let universe handle it, or let it go and put it off till tomorrow. So I usually do some journaling. I'll do sometimes, actually most every day, more yoga. I do some gentle stretching before I go to bed. I get grounded, I get centered. One of the big things for me is unplugging. No Facebook, no email, no internet after about 6 p.m. Again, do I do it every day? No, sometimes it's 8 o'clock at night and I'm on Facebook. I'm like, oh, I need to get off of this. But I found that being online tends to rile me up rather than help me relax and wind down. So for me, it's important that I unplug. So that's part of my self-care practice. So 5 ways you can show up for yourself. Choose the one that resonates with you. For me, they unfolded in about that way. And again, this was over the course of time. This is not something that I would love to be able to say I was 25 and I started doing all these things and life was great, but it took a while, right? It took time for me to realize, A, I was worth spending my time on, and B, that if I didn't do that, I couldn't be the best version of me and I couldn't show up for my loved ones, for my job, for my responsibilities without being angry and anxious and cranky and bitter and resentful unless I took time for me. So morning questions, pick some variant of what do I need today, make sure you get it. That pause or presence practice. Meditation of any variety, whatever works for you. And again, doesn't have to be for a super long time. For me, it's about 10 minutes twice a day. It could be less, it could be more. Do what works for you. Journaling, huge, incredibly powerful part of my healing and presencing and showing up for myself. And then as it develops, I found that the more I did self-care, actually the more productive I was because I was more fulfilled, more enriched, more ready to show up and more excited about doing things. So for me, the AM and PM power hour developed over time. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, fine. So if none of those ideas resonate for you, or even if they do and you want to dive deeper, here's my invitation for you. Starting September 18th, I am hosting a telesummit, an online event called the Well-Nourished Goddess, the Art of Sacred Self-Care. 21 experts over the course of 2 weeks. So we run from September 18th through September 29th. You'll get 21 speakers, right? You'll get all kinds of ideas, new ways of thinking about it. I've got something for everyone. So if you are struggling with showing up for yourself, with putting you first, with taking even a small bit of time for you, I invite you to show up for this telesummit. You can listen to it, you can watch the videos, you can download the audios and listen to them while you're driving the kids to school or while you're waiting at the doctor's office for your appointment or you're just commuting around town running errands. You can watch the videos. If you've got that kind of time, awesome. I hope that you do. But if not, video and audio format so you can listen to them at a time that is convenient for you. And you'll get all sorts of ideas. You'll get some free gifts from these experts to help you show up for you. And they will each tell you their own story of why and how they learned it was so important. So just go to the well-nourishedgoddess.com and sign up. And I will see you starting September 18th. Much love. Keep those questions coming in. Dr. Mary at drmarypritchard.com. And I'll see you next week.